Lawmakers will hold a hearing next month on the taxes of private equity and hedge funds. Now, the question is, does Congress have a strong argument here for changing the current PE tax code? Joining us are Pat Toomey, president of the Club for Economic Growth, also today's guest contributors, Leo Hendry and Bill Seidman. Leo, I want to start with you because you actually work in private equity.
Right.
You're from this industry, and you have a pretty interesting take on this. You think it should be taxed.
You know, I've been in it since 1988, Trish, which is a long time. And it's not just private equity. The issue that's in front of the Congress is hedge funds, private equity, any of these limited partnerships that characterize the income that we, the managers, earn as carried interest. And the query is whether it should be taxed as a capital gain at 15%, or whether it's more appropriately ordinary income. And for me, it's not just, it's black and white. It is so much ordinary income. And I respect the Mr. Toomey's views. I saw them written up, and it's just not right. There is no risk to my income as carried interest. The premise of a capital gains treatment, all the way back to 1915, is that there's a risk element here. There's a capital building process.
Well, you're putting money at work. You're taking money from your clients, from yourself, putting it into the system, and you run the risk that you may not make a thing.
No, I run no risk. I run no risk. I get a management fee and I get a performance fee. The management fee is unassailable. If I were to ask you, Trish, to run my grocery store, I would pay you a salary, and if you did a really nice job running my grocery store, I'd give you some sort of bonus or performance fee, and you would pay 35% on that. This is not the investor's capital that we're talking about. It's not the state of New York's or the state of California's or a corporate pension plan. I manage their money. We're not talking about that, and much of the debate in the next few weeks is going to be about unintended consequences on them. There is no consequence on them. It is on the managers. I am a manager of other people's monies. If I worked for Chase Manhattan and I managed Carl's money, I would pay 35%.
You wouldn't have a lot to do, but you might make 35%.
But it's simply the management fee that we're talking about, and there's no risk.
Okay, Pat Toomey, I want to get you in here. I mean, tell us why you don't buy Leo's argument.
Well, first of all, because it's not about the risk. I don't think that's the central issue that's at stake here. Let's go back to Leo's example of the grocery store. If you're an entrepreneur and you have an idea for a new kind of grocery store, and you go out and raise money to launch this new store, you don't have any of your own to put into it perhaps, but your investors agree that you'll get 20% of the equity in return for launching this business and growing it. And if you do that, and if you're successful and you sell it 5 years later, and there's a big profit for everybody, why, we don't say, well, that capital gain on the appreciated value of that investment has to be treated as ordinary income because the entrepreneur was, after all, being compensated. No. What we say is an appreciated asset is a capital gain, and capital gains are treated as such at a lower tax rate. And it's the same situation here. The private equity fund manager is benefiting from appreciated assets.
If all that's true, Pat, why aren't more people coming to private equity's rescue on the Hill? I mean, nobody is rushing to join you guys in this fight.
There's a reason for that, because, I mean, a lot of folks have done a good job demagoguing guys who make an awful lot of money. But are you suggesting... wait a minute, let me ask you guys. Let me ask... I answered your question. My question is, do you want to take that entrepreneur in the scenario that I just laid out and tax his gain as ordinary income? Now, I know some on the left do want to eliminate the differential between
where
capital
do you stand
gains.
on that one, Leo?
I am not talking about the invested capital.
I'm not either. I'm talking about the entrepreneur who invested nothing.
You are mixing entrepreneurship and creativity with managing other people's monies.
Absolutely
This is not. You said to Trish. Let me finish now. Let me finish.
Okay, you finish.
You said to Trish that there was going to be money put in, Pat, into this grocery store, and that should earn a capital gain if it appreciates.
By other investors, yes.
But Leo Hendry is managing somebody's money.
So is the grocery store manager.
But the 20% that I earn for managing it is my management fee. It's not my invested capital.
And neither is it in the case of the grocery store owner. The scenario I laid out, he put in not a dime. It is the investor's money that he managed. It happens to be in an operating company instead of a financial business. I don't see the difference.
Bill, weigh in here. And as you do, I don't know if you...
I'm a long-time tax lawyer from way back, and I think Leo is 100% right. when you're compensated for your accomplishments in managing, that's ordinary income. And it amazes me that they've been able to get away with reporting this as capital gain all this period. I think the IRS has been asleep.
Bill, the only logical conclusion from what you guys were saying is that we have to abolish the distinction between the different rates between capital gains and ordinary income.
And
I know there are some on the left who want to do that, but it's bad policy.
That's the red herring that you guys are using.
Why is that wrong?
Because it's wrong. Bill is so right. It's what's happening on this fight on the other side is you have a group of very privileged class of managers who are trying to preserve the lowest rate of taxation possible. It has nothing to do with the debate on capital gains versus ordinary income as a principle. It has nothing to do with invested capital. It's the management fee.
I don't know if you guys saw yesterday. There was
a problem on the Hill is that they need some help, and the only way they can get it is to say you're going to go after all capital gains. So come on, you guys, come to my rescue.
And that is the logic of what you're doing. And this is
Bill,
very
Pat,
bad news.
There was a protest, a mock protest staged by the SEIU yesterday in the Hamptons, supposedly concern for Henry Kravis that, in their words, their neighbor may have to sell one of his many lavish homes or dip into his billion-dollar bank account.
Let's be realistic here. What's going to happen?
It's become a joke, Pat.
Yeah, what's going to happen if Congress manages to pass this? I think the president would veto it. I doubt they can override it. But if it were to come to pass, then a few things happen. Fund managers move offshore. They restructure so they're not subject to this tax. And to the extent that they are, like all taxes, they will pass them on to the consumer. And so the pension funds will pay higher.
Listen,
Pat, let me ask you this. How much do you think private equity contributes to the overall growth of the economy?
Well, it'd be very hard to precisely quantify it, but clearly it's enormous. It has earned outsized gains for the last 25 years. The pension funds and all the other investors who've invested with them have done so at ever greater amounts precisely because of the great returns they've generated.
So your fear
it provides
is
liquidity to the markets.
Your fear is then that these shops are going to go offshore and that the U.S. economy would therefore lose this potential revenue.
And keep in mind that what the managers will do is they will say that instead of a 20% carried interest, I want 25% now because I have to pay more in taxes. And so the pension funds and all the investors will get a lower rate of return, and it just doesn't make sense.
Let me give you one statistic.
Okay, last word, because we really got to go.
The top 20 hedge fund and private equity managers in America in 2006 earned an average of $694 million apiece.
More than the top 500.
And they paid 15% tax rate on an average income of $694 million.
So my gosh, what are a few extra percentage points when you're talking that kind of money anyway? Thanks so much to all of you, to Pat Toomey, of course, to Bill and to Leo. You guys are going to stay with us throughout the show.